checking our streams. We're streaming to my Twitter, Lance's Twitter, and we are streaming to BankX Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, YouTube, and Rumble. Camera 1 is not working, so we'll stick with camera 2 today. And I think we've got it all, session. Let's go. Okay, welcome to the BankX Boardroom. If you are new to BankX, BankX is the first cryptocurrency to pay you interest for minting a stablecoin, and you earn that interest the entire time that is in circulation, and you pay that interest when you give the XSD back to the system to collect your collateral and your interest. We also have a token lockup rewards where you earn more BankX by locking up BankX, and we have an NFT that is the first NFT to pay you stablecoin at certain TVL milestones of the system. And it also boosts your rewards in the token lockup rewards, so you get more BankX than someone that just locks up BankX. There's other things you can do in the BankX system that you can learn about at our socials or on our website, where you can profit by helping to stabilize the XSD stablecoin. So wherever you're watching, please like, share, subscribe, or follow. I'm Lance Parker, the founder of BankX, so I've been in technology for over 2 decades and founded several companies. And BankX is a very big system, complex. When I look back at the 2.5 years of research, development, audit, smart contract audit, economic audit, white hat hacker program, it is a very big system, but I think what we've come out at the end of this is the best stablecoin system and design that I see in the market. And we have built the BankX system for individual freedom, where each person has their own talents and gifts to give to the world, and we don't want finances to be something that restricts someone from realizing that. And so we can see a shift towards individual freedom that you might see in the upcoming administration, and there is sort of this pushback or attempt to stifle this move to individual freedom through trying to stop the next administration's agenda, even start wars. So, sort of sending missiles into Russia, and then them showing that they could fire back into Ukraine, and just all of these things here that are trying to stop this move to individual freedom. And so you can learn more about the cause of BankX by reading the cryptocurrency creators or the currency creators manifesto on our website. That really talks about our mission within BankX. And I think as we've seen the price of silver really go up as this heads against inflation, I just recently saw numbers of the U.S. being 36 trillion in debt, and then roughly printing about $1 trillion additional dollars every quarter. So we're in a great position with what we've pegged with silver. And I have the silver rocket here that's been here at my desk to really signify what I think is happening. And if you haven't seen, we added the BankX blue clock. So just some additions here to the live streaming area within our, I guess you could call the BankX studio or the command center. So what we've done, and some of the things I want to talk about with updates and development updates, I've tried to be what I guess some people would call long-term greedy with BankX, where I look at the system as being sort of this long-term review, sort of pointing at 2025 as the next bull market, and BankX being positioned for that. So when I've looked at the design of the system, we've always looked at, like, what if someone comes in and mints 1 million XSD, or they mint 100 million XSD, or even 1 billion XSD. So we want the system to be able to handle that type of minting. Because I look at, there's a Twitter handle or user, I think it's Stablecoin printer, so you could see what Tether's printing. I mean, I've watched over the last couple weeks where they are routinely printing $1 billion in Tether stablecoin. I think I saw several times where it was 3 or 4 billion. So we want to think of BankX in those terms. So if you're just coming to BankX and wondering how you can start, the best thing that you can do is to buy the XSD stablecoin. It is on most chains it is below the peg, so you're effectively buying that at a discount. So you can go to www.bankx.io and it says buy XSD. Or you can go within our web app, app.bankx.io, and go to the swap screen. So the other thing that we want to make sure everyone's aware of, if you're on Pulse Chain as we prepare for that deployment, we have a promotion around eHex. So when you buy eHex on Pulse Chain, the USD equivalent value, you would get that also in the XSD stablecoin on Pulse Chain. I'm going to next week announce a reward of 250 XSD on the chain that you like when you suggest UI enhancements that we end up using, or if you find something in the system in the UI that's not working correctly. So I want to make sure that if there's any final wrinkles to work out, that we have that all taken care of. I don't see anything as it is now, but I like to have it out in the wild and people using the system to make sure that everything is working well. I'm going to start talking and maybe doing video calls in the currency creators group, because I'd like to work with that group, and then also individually on what things we might work together on marketing. So interacting with top influencers and crypto people on Twitter, NFT people, things like that. So if you have any ideas, please, either in the main @BankX.io group, let me know what ideas you have as we sort of go into this marketing efforts around BankX. And I also like to do that within the NFT currency creators group. Another thing that we're going to be adding is, we've had some people say, oh God, I'm answering the same question to people I'm telling about BankX. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a chat box on the BankX website where it will guide the onboarding of new users to BankX on what they should do. And most importantly, after they've looked at BankX, they would be able to ask questions of how the system works, or just something that they may not understand. And this chat box will use the docs section of BankX. So if when you come on to BankX, you can look at our socials, ask questions at the @BankX.io Telegram group. We have a YouTube channel that we're rebuilding and updating the videos, where there's going to be the explainer video, a get started video that you can pass to people that are just starting out in crypto. They may not even have a wallet. So we've got that instructional video on how to get started. Then there'll be a learn more section, which we're filling in more of those videos that should be done over the next couple weeks, that segments of the system that you want to learn about. You can watch shorter videos. And then, of course, we have the BankX Boardroom that you can join at our regular sessions here to ask questions. And then on the YouTube channel, there's also the masterclass where you can take a deep dive into the system. And so what we did with that was we took the information from the previous masterclasses, and then we did a series of private masterclasses, and then all the questions that I got about how the BankX system works, we put that all in the masterclass for people to see. So that I want to get into some of the updates on the development side. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, this is more of an analogy before I get into the BankX development update. So if you can imagine a room that you were to walk in where everybody is in a costume covering their face and they're disguising their voice, and they can say anything about you and broadcast that, and then they're looking into your sort of bank account, and they can see where you're spending money and things like that. And I look at that as some elements of crypto where there's these anonymous people, they can see your wallet address and do all these things. So I've always talked about what I thought would be a better blockchain where it's private, autonomous, it still operates in the same immutable ledger of some of the current blockchains that we've talked about with ConnectX and Lockbox. So I just wanted people to know that that's still very much underway, and we're beginning the next phase of development in that. Sort of wanted to keep people aware of that still going on in the background. So development updates for BankX. I've mentioned some of these, but I just wanted to bring those up for people that might be joining in here for the first time. So we've got quite a number of enhancements to the UI and the system. First is you'll be able to view the pricing charts of each chain without connecting your wallet. So when we push this new version to production, you'll be able to choose the chain and see the pricing without connecting your wallet. So I wanted people to be able to analyze some of the pricing of the stablecoin and BankX without actually having to connect their wallet. The other thing which I mentioned before is the enhancements to the token lockup rewards. You can see the date you're expected to claim from your lockup. And then we have changed the token lockup estimator where it gives the last successful unlockup. So it'll show you how many NFTs, how many days served, and what was the actual rewards paid. And then you can make a determination on, how many NFTs you'd like to stake, how long, how big, and then we're sort of living in the real life historical information of what the token lockup is paying. It was just way too difficult for us to estimate the future because there is an inflation rate where the number of people who lock up are sharing in that daily inflation, and it was just too impossible to know how many people on each day into the future are locking up. So that was the thing that we solved there. The next thing that we spent quite a bit of time on is one function in particular on the mint and redeem, which was the fractional mint and redeem of the BankX system. So if you know, there's 3 mint and redeem functions within BankX. One is what we call one-to-one, and that's when you use the entire native blockchain token to mint the XSD stablecoin. So that's working flawlessly, and so we didn't do anything to that. The other one is at this end state of the system where XSD has been above the peg for so long that the collateral ratio has stepped down to where it's 0% of the native blockchain token used to mint the XSD stablecoin, meaning that the entire amount needed is all BankX. And so that is 0% collateral ratio, and we call that algorithmic minting and redeem. It's just the term that we inherited from Frax. And that works in the same way as one-to-one, where you send in all the BankX, it calculates the USD value of that, and then mints your equivalent amount of the XSD stablecoin. So those are, we've set that up to be a very sort of like, as you went to a Forex window, you would settle what the value is that you're exchanging from one currency to another, and then the window would pay you that right there on the spot. So it works very similar. What we were running into with Mint Fractional and Redeem Fractional was there was this sort of very tiny, small, out of sync calculation between the front end and the smart contract, because you had in Fractional Mint and Redeem, you had both the native blockchain token and the BankX token to mint. And so if it was off by a fraction of a decimal point, it would just say there wasn't enough input, as an example. So what we did was we somewhat re-engineered how that works so it's an exact exchange rate. And so we are on mainnet on one chain. We're doing the UI integration for that. I don't see that there'll be any issues. We did quite a bit of testing on the back end before we push this solution forward. And then once that clears testing, we will deploy on all of the rest of the chains, and then we'll push the new production UI, which would have all of these enhancements that we've been talking about, plus the sort of enhancement and fix to the Mint and Redeem Fractional. So, when I talk about sort of like this long-term greediness, I would say, or thought around BankX being a huge system and wanting it to be kind of the best it can, with Mint and Redeem Fractional, that's going to be one of the most used functions within Mint and Redeem. So I wanted that to be able to be very sort of flawless in its operation, where someone could come in and mint 1 million XSD. We tested it all the way up to doing a mint of 1 billion with a B XSD in one transaction, and it is working well. So that's what I talk about in sort of that sort of long-term thinking and wanting to position the system to be and operate in that way. So those are the things I wanted to cover. This is in America, this is a short week for everyone as far as the Thanksgiving holiday. But I still wanted to get on a live stream and talk a bit about what's happening, thought process, and all of that. So I want to start working very, very closely with our social groups, and then some of the more active members I'd like to work one-on-one as we shift in some of the marketing. So I'd like to cover some questions. So Jubajan, we are I'm going to work with you on the chat box. I'll send that along to you. I've got that all sort of figured out, the process flow about how we onboard people. As I've talked about, we're adding a way to help people answer questions using a chat box. So I'll get that to you. Says Jubajan, you have a question about the NFT. So the NFT is the first NFT that pays you stablecoin at certain TVL milestones of the system on each chain. And when you own the NFT and lock it up with BankX, it boosts the rewards over and above if you were just to lock BankX by itself. You get special access to a group on Telegram and Discord. And so this is the first NFT of its kind that does anything like this. So one of the things I always talk about in your question, Jubajan, is what would the proceeds of that crypto for the sale of NFT be used? So I want to make sure that everyone knows that BankX is not a company. It's structured very different. It's not a common enterprise. So I have to be careful to make sure that I stay within that structure. But if I was to think about us shifting to a marketing focus, I would hypothesize that crypto that comes in for the NFT would be to continue mostly in marketing and to scale up marketing, sort of answer your question the best way that I can. If you have any questions, you can pop them in any of our Telegram, Twitter, anything you like, you can post in there. And so we have one question from James, and James, I waited on this because it was you had quite a bit of good questions here, and I wanted to put that in our BankX Boardroom. So if you're coming back on, we don't call it BankX TV anymore. We call it the BankX Boardroom because of the video that was released of FDIC coming in and talking about how, we don't want people to know about bail-ins and things like that. So we wanted to have a counter to that where we get in and talk about replacing the legacy financial system within BankX. So we call it the BankX Boardroom. So James, question that you have is from the minting earns interest video, few comments. So collateral ratio, does it change from 100% before the price of XSD reaches peg or just after? My understanding is there would be a gradual decrease in the collateral percentage as XSD price comes near the peg. So, yeah, I think there might be just distinguishing between a couple things there, James. So when the price of XSD is above the peg, and it's in, there's a small range where the collateral ratio won't change, but when it's above the peg, the collateral ratio will step down by 0.25%. And it won't step down more than once every 30 minutes. And that's something the admin keys could set. I think every 30 minutes is a good time frame. So that will step down as the system calculates that, and then it notices that the price of XSD is above the peg. So if you never notice when you use the UI, it'll say system calculations when it's doing all these things. And so when the price of XSD is above the peg, it's going to recalculate the collateral ratio as long as it's been 30 minutes, and it will step down that collateral ratio by 0.25%. Then the opposite happens when it's below the peg. If it's been within greater than 30 minutes, during the calculation of all the things in the system, the collateral ratio will increase by 0.25%. So that's how that works. I think you might, so when you talk about is a gradual decrease of the collateral ratio, so I think what you might also be talking about is the arbitrage feature where you burn one token to mint the other, and it uses the both liquidity pools to help to bring the price of XSD back close to the peg. So what we do with that is if it's high above the peg, it wouldn't sort of go up and down. It would step and then get close to the peg, so we don't go like above and below and keep sort of whipsawing back and forth. I think that's what you might be talking about a bit there with. So it might be two things you're touching on. So how does the price of BankX important? Obviously, when the collateral ratio goes down and BankX is needed to mint XSD, currently there's a low price of BankX on BNB. So anytime we mint or redeem, or really a lot of the parts within the system, it is always based on the value in USD value. So the US dollar is always the unit of account within the BankX system. So it will look at the price of say, BankX on a particular chain, use the USD value. So XSD is roughly $1 right now as far as the price of 1 gram of silver. So it will look at, what is the USD value of the native blockchain token that you need, and what is the USD value of BankX that you need. So it's all based on what's the current price of both the native blockchain token and the BankX token. So hope that answers that for you. So so the other question is saying the amount of interest you get paid is half the collateral ratio is not clear. I thought the interest rate is minting is half of the BankX percentage of the collateral needed. So I think I understand your question. So we have a minimum interest rate of what you earn for minting XSD of 5.28%. And so we increase that as the collateral ratio goes down. So by that I mean the lower amount of native blockchain token that's needed to mint. That is sort of this the balance of that it uses BankX. So if you have 80% Ethereum as an example, and you have 20% BankX, your interest rate is half of the collateral percentage that BankX is needed to mint XSD. So in that example of 80% Ethereum, 20% BankX, the interest rate is 1/2 of the BankX ratio or percentage. In this case, it would be 10%. So if it's all Ethereum, or say 100% minting XSD using 100% of the native blockchain token, then we still pay the minimum 5.28%. So the interest rate for minting XSD only increases once the amount of BankX, so what would that be, like 10.5% roughly? So when you start moving below that number is when the interest rate would increase. So I think that should answer that question, I believe. And if you say the interest rate, you can pay half the collateral ratio, and you also say when the collateral ratio lowers, the interest rate goes up. It does not, in my understanding, but I may, yeah. So, So the idea with this, James, is that as the XSD stablecoin is above the peg, meaning there's lots of demand for XSD. People are buying it. It's driving the price above the peg. The system is lowering the amount of native blockchain token that's needed, meaning that more BankX is needed to mint the XSD stablecoin. So that is basically requiring more of the BankX to be taken out of supply. So where now that's effectively distributing value to current BankX token holders, because there's more being purchased out of the supply to mint the stablecoin because of the demand is high of the XSD stablecoin. So that's tokens are tied economically. So this also means that we need more XSD minted because it's above the peg. And so by lowering the collateral ratio and then also tying the interest rate, we're incentivizing more people to mint. So there's a couple of economic levers that are being pulled there, not only distributing value back to the BankX token holders when the price is above the peg for XSD, it's lowering that collateral ratio, requiring more BankX needed to mint. So there's less, less supply, or more BankX being taken out of supply to mint the stablecoin. And then we want to also incentivize people to mint, so the system pays more in interest in that case by tying the BankX collateral ratio to the minting earns interest rate. So that is how that works. So in explaining, I think the term collateral ratio is not easy to understand. So it's right, it's more percentage, James, where it's like percentage of the native token and percentage of the BankX token, and we look at it in the back-end system as ratio, and that's what we called it. So the last question from James is, in the video of the profit, in this video it is important for people to know that minting and redeeming is always at peg, otherwise arbitrary. Yes, absolutely. So if you are below the peg, you do not want to mint the stablecoin, because if you're minting it at the price of silver, 1 gram of silver, and it's below the peg, then it doesn't make sense, because you can buy it at a lower price. Similarly, if it's above the peg, you want to mint, because you can mint at the price lower than what the market is paying, and then you can mint and sell it for a profit. So all of these things are economic things and dynamic parts of the system to help maintain the peg of XSD. So I think that's all for the questions. Those were great questions, James. It's good to hear from you again. So with that, if there's no other questions, we'll be back next week, Tuesday, probably about the same time. Feel free to tell everyone about BankX. XSD is below the peg on most of the chains, and it's a great time to get involved as we start our marketing efforts. So I appreciate one hopping on, and happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving to people in the U.S. I'm going to play the Boardroom for everyone so they know why we renamed this. Thank you.
A little bit conflicted, right? I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be. That's And it could be an early warning signal to the FDIC and the primary regulators when these things happen. And there may be some other prices, this is similar to what Jay was saying, in the market that you can tell whether people understand who's going to be protected, who isn't going to be protected. It would be, I think, an interesting study to look at the evolution of market prices in a situation like March of 2020, for example, and see whether people understood what might happen.
Should be accessible when people need to know, but I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim, right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people that will charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out, and the